Thanks, Alan. Yeah, welcome everybody. So if you don't have a place to lie down available, we'll be lying down for a little bit during the meditation. If you want to arrange your space now to do that, Stacy's ready for that. Um, Everybody's always so happy to lie down. More lying down. Um, yeah, so just arrange your space if you need to. We'll lead with a meditation, probably about 45 minutes or so. Then I'll do a little talk and then open up to discussion and so forth. So we'll begin. Let me see here. And begin with some chanting refuge for the Chitam. Yeah, let's begin. Namo Buddhaya Gurave Namo Dharmaya Tayine Namo Sangha Mahate Shrevyo Satata Nama Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangha Renew Ishanatana Namo Guruve Namo Dharmaya Ayini Namo Sangha Dream your peace and Namo Buddha Sharanam Gacchami Dharma Sharanam Gacchami Sangam Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangam Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam gacchami Sangam Sharanam gacchami Om Dana Sanchin Tanji Lo Chusun Rower Jinji Laptus Jalandu Rower Jinji Laptus Jumba Sower Jinji Laptus Kumba Yishis Shower Jinji Landu Ai Pia Lado Nujingi Jumdana Mi Kadanda Tua Kunji Tiki Chisamba Tanji Kidu Daki Churchi Malay London Sudden Demi Joy Jizik Karenjing Kamala Sword Isn't Joey Jizik Kamabe Rajan Jinni Duna Wandrewa Tai Sida Raja Tiranchi Rimba Jamana Lasoa Jamba Jana Birana Bajan Hussein Jason Lansodi Jase la Jian Chusimba, Kamba Dunan and Dayan, the Giant Jinso, Boswan, and journalism mirror and a murder. Certain non Jishina also the Premier Denze and then Johnson, the Radiation for the Podran, Yusun Sanji, Kunji, Norm, Nonsen, Choco, Nonsen, Tonsen, May, Sorry, Lamar, Shala, so let's begin with Bodhicitta. Just first conceptually, connecting with the idea, it was thought that in order to benefit all sentient beings, whose numbers fill the extent of space, we will listen to and contemplate and put into practice the profound Mahayana Dharma. And in so doing, achieve the level of full awakening, Vajradhara, Buddhahood, and bring all beings to that same state. So see how those different concepts, those different words strike you, touch you. And then let's build that organically in our experience. So just beginning, the hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And as you do, just feeling that sense of contact, sense of holding, being contained, being tended to, and really offer yourself that attention, that care. Deepen this through the breath, that as you breathe in, feel those places of contact. Breathe into those places. Invite the breath. As you breathe out, soften. Start to develop a sense of permeability and sensitivity in the body. Adding to this, as you breathe in, do so with a sense of care, kindness to oneself. And as you breathe out, do so with a sense of acceptance for oneself, for whatever you're feeling. And if you feel closely, we are both giving and receiving. We're the object and the agent. Settle into the simplicity of attentive presence. It's kind, allowing. A simple gesture really allows us to listen, allows whatever is under the surface to come to the surface, allows us to feel authentically what is going on. Notice texture and tone. Now let your hands rest. Continue to feel the places where the hands were. Continue to breathe. Having removed that scaffolding, notice a sense of tenderness, perhaps vulnerability. Exploring what Roshi Joan Halifax calls the soft front and firm back. In front, there is a tenderness, a receptivity. But behind this whole situation, there is a vividness of presence. There's a wakefulness, strong. It's not about to be blown over. So without feeling, shift into wishing the benefit of others, an altruistic wish. Feel how the body knows this, how the body gives rise, how the body offers. Wish for others' benefit, others' happiness, for others to be free of suffering. Whatever comes up for you when you orient to benefiting others. Notice how that dawns in the body. You can use the out breath to radiate that wish. Let the wish ride the breath spatially in front of you, to the sides, behind. From the body, beyond the body. See how much you can extend that. How much can you reach beyond yourself while not losing yourself, not losing that sensitivity, that care, attunement to what you are feeling. Exploring how we can blend sensitivity to our own condition, an altruistic wish for others. Notice how you fall out of balance, overextending yourself, losing that sensitivity to your own side. Or hesitating, withdrawing, feeling apprehension about going too far. So notice how this feels. Just continue to breathe, riding the exhalation, wishing for benefit of others. Breathing in, feeling what you feel. Developing a sense of evenness between the inner and the outer, between self and other. As much as you're able, expanding and extending impartially and universally, wishing the benefit for all others without exception. Exploring any kind of partiality that might come up, any habits of that. Feeling how we might get lost in the vagueness of everything everywhere. It's just a concept. But yet there is always more. There is always more to open to include, explore that dynamic. You need to breathe and use the breath as a thread to follow. It might feel a little bit tiring. That's normal, that's fine. Breathing in, feeling what you feel, acknowledging without judgment. Breathing out,
offering kindness, goodness, compassion, joy, peace, whatever feels right to you, however you want to express that altruistic wish. Exploring the limit of that. And notice the shift that occurs when we move from a universal altruistic mind to bodhicitta, a wish for the full awakening of all beings. So we're already exploring all beings, wishing benefit for all beings. What is it like now to shift into wishing their full awakening? In one sense, this is more, not only benefit temporarily, but permanent, total benefit. But in another sense, it's initiating a transparency, wishing the benefit of all beings, and then wishing for their full awakening. Suddenly that boundlessness is not so big. It is just full transparency, wakefulness everywhere. Wakefulness on our own side, our own full awakening. Notice that unique shift. If we follow that more and more inwardly, more and more pervasively, there is a great evenness. There is a sense of always and already. There is an erasure of one who wishes, those that are benefited, the act of wishing. There is a great simplicity. Rest in and as bodhicitta, vivid, utterly simple, free of reference, coextensive with all of space. Beyond large or small, the naked abiding condition of our own awareness. Okay, let's bring this into our body now. Let's bring our hands to our hips, thumbs in back, and just breathe with the belly. And we're just going to flush out all of the stale winds of the body. So Breathe in with the belly like it bellows, and then breathe out, squeezing it all the way out. See that? Breathe in, let the belly grow. And the idea here is to really flush any kind of stagnant wind in the belly. I feel like I'll articulate that space. A few more. Full in, full out. And now shift up to the armpits, thumbs in the armpits, hands in the pectorals, raise up the elbows so you lengthen the sides of the chest. Breathe in with the belly, bring the breath all the way up to the sides. Then exhale down, all the way down to the belly, and again squeeze out. So now introducing breath into the belly and the chest. Mixing and then flushing on the way out. Squeezing, expelling. A few more. Okay. Last set. Thumbs in the clavicles. Lift up the elbows so that the upper chest is totally exposed. Breathe in with the belly. Fill the chest. Fill the upper chest. Down. Squeeze it all out. Just breathe at your own pace. And again, the idea here is to refresh the spaces of breathing. Refresh the actual breath. Feeling what might be stuck. A few more. Notice any kind of sharpness, soreness in the body, stagnation. And the next out breath, let the hands come down. Breathe with the belly naturally, not forcing. Normal breath, and just feel space in the body. And remembering that we are inviting bodhicitta to be discovered in the body. How do we invite it to unfold in the body palpably? So feeling aspect of maybe spaciousness that has opened, and the aspect of vitality that has awakened. This is also a dimension of bodhicitta. Okay, we're going to do a series of movements now. You have your hands on your knees. You can do this in a chair, sitting down. Breathe in the same way we were doing. Breathe into the belly, fill the chest all the way up. Exhale, bring your left shoulder to the right knee. Breathe in, come back up. Right shoulder to the left knee. Just breathing in and out 3 times to each side. Feeling every moment of the movement, blending, mixing the breath with the body, resting. When you finish, again, noticing space, noticing soreness, what is awake, what is blocked. Breathe with the belly in. Hands on the hips now, breathing in, belly and chest all the way up. Exhaling and twisting. Inhaling back to center, twisting to the other side. In and out 3 times each side. Moving through the heart space, moving through the belly space. And then again, relaxing. And as you take these restorative breaths, breath by breath, allow the body to settle, feeling more and more deeply, more directly. The clarity, the space, the sensation, the openness. Body, bodhicitta. Your hands on the hips now, breathing in, bending to the side, exhaling, in and out, left and right. We're starting to feel more and more simple in the body. The body is just present as it is, honest, direct. Similarly, the space around you, appearances, clear, simple. Stream of thoughts and emotions. Moving with a lot of space, room to breathe. Flowing as they will. Hands on the knees, breathing in and arching back. Exhaling, rolling forward. Sting. Circle back to that initial contemplation on bodhicitta. Linking up again with that sense of total transparency. Fluidity between the inner and the outer. And the always already wakefulness. Bodhicitta is simultaneously a very big deal and just as it is. Yeah, let's transition to lying down. And if you can, having your legs bent, your feet a little bit apart by your hips, so your knees fall together. Your hands on the belly. And just relaxing and releasing in these initial moments, connecting with the ground. Let's move through the body deliberately, breathing with the body across the boundary between the ground and the body. Starting with the feet, breathing in, inviting the breath up through the ground, feeling the feet, breathing into the feet. Breathing out, flowing from the feet, emptying. And breath by breath, moving up into the tops of the feet, the ankles, shins and calves, all the way up to the knees. And in this, we're just exploring or feeling out solidity and fixation. And the in-breath we sense and mix, and the out-breath we flow down, release, melt, and relax. Let down fixation, unravel tension and solidity. And contact the sacrum, feeling that place of contact with the ground, feeling into that, breathing in, mixing. Breathing out, softening, releasing. And breath by breath, moving up into the hips, the thighs, up to the knees. Moving up from the sacrum into the lower belly. And shifting to the mid back, feeling the contact of the back with the ground. Breathing in, up through the ground, into the chest. And be curious, just explore around what you find, what is stuck, what is solid. Explore throughout the chest as you breathe in, as you breathe out, relaxing, flowing down, back, releasing into the earth. And feeling the elbows, those places of contact. Feeling through the arms, upper arms, lower arms. And feeling into the shoulder blades. Feeling that place of contact on either side. Breathing in, inviting the breath into the upper chest. And finally, breathing into the back of the head. Exploring as you breathe in any aspects of solidity and fixation. Riding the out breath back and down. The temples, the forehead, the jaw, center of the head. Junction of the spine and the skull. Now, if your eyes have been closed, opening them and breathing with the entire back of the body. Breathing in, feeling the body resting on the ground. Breathing out, flowing back and down. Keep your attention backwards, below. Allow appearances above to just be as they are, without fixation, seizure. Now move to either the heart or the belly, a place where you feel most anchored, where there is a sense of feedback as you breathe and feel. And place your hands there on the front side of the body, over either the heart or the belly. And breathe in from behind, through the ground, up into that space. And I'm going to be moving more inwardly. As you breathe in and sense, develop a terrain, the landscape of that space. And as you breathe out, empty it. Let it pour out backward, down. And developing that permeability between the body space and the earth space. And notice how breathing in this way, in this particular space of belly or heart, how this affects appearances. How this contains the streams of thought and emotion. Just continue to breathe. And start to privilege the out-breath, riding it backward and downward. Ride the out-breath. Down into the earth space. Now notice at the end of the out-breath, as the breath is exhausted, awareness can keep descending, keep opening into that space behind. Feel what it's like to ride the breath beyond the end of the physical breath. Dropping. Explore the emptiness of the breath, that space. The out-breath as a segue before stepping off into openness. You can remain there. You can remain there even if you breathe. And you can remain there regardless of the condition of the body. Again and again, we ride the breath. And at the end, we touch great space. And after touching it again and again, we can just remain. Okay, let's transition back to sitting. Let's take a moment to recalibrate. But continue to breathe with that place in the body, using it as a support. And the same as before, as you breathe in, you feel that space, but this time without any directionality. We just breathe in and feel the belly, or we feel the heart. If you need to put your hand there, that's fine, just to feel, to tune in, and then you can drop it whenever you need. And as we breathe out, again, no directionality, just breathing out from the heart or from the belly. And as you develop this further, linking with a sense of the panorama, not just 360 panorama, but also below and above, a great sphere of sensing. Breath by breath, touching that sphere. Just as we did with great space, lying down. At the end of the out breath, we touch the openness. And having contacted it again and again, we can simply remain open without reference. Like a sphere, there is no directionality, reference points, no corners to orient to. At first, this sphere is spacious. It feels like a very large, open space. Breath by breath, we can allow it to become more and more transparent, less bounded, less of anything at all. What is it like again to remember bodhicitta as in this openness? The very quality of this mind is bodhicitta. Both as a wish and as always already. We wish for the awakening of all beings. There is a strength of purpose, a strength of intention. There's a power there. There's also an abandonment, there's a letting go, there's a relinquishing of agency of result. Right in that vividness, naked mind, simple, vivid, vast. Ever present. It's not something that has arisen. It's not something that can be lost, broken, divided. It's not something that you discovered at a certain point, as if it weren't there already. Effortless, not something that is the product of striving. Beyond words, not something that can be indicated with a symbol or description. Exhaustively. Always beyond bodhicitta. And so for those of you who were aware of the title, bit of tongue-in-cheek effort to try to distinguish these different notions of awakening, maybe enlightenment, maybe realization, and experiences of any of those glimpses. Like, what is it that we're talking about? And even if you were in the presence of someone who was abiding in that full realization of the truth, someone who fully embodies the truth, it's not something that it seems can necessarily be described or indicated or pointed to for them to do that to you. And yet, we have this very, especially in the Tibetan tradition, very strongly established um, convention of what's called pointing out, having that nature, that realization, that awakening be something that is developed or pointed out through relationship and being in the presence of one who has fully developed that. So there's that paradox. Another paradox is we very much, we're all set in some way to whatever degree on this thing called enlightenment or awakening or realization. And even though, and we need that, we need to be oriented to that, we need to have a goal. And that gets us started, that gives us a sense of purpose and direction, and something to reference as we practice, as we progress. And on the other hand, it's not, we actually don't know where it's going. We don't know what that is. We have a vague notion of it being good, something desirable, something that would be better than what we're experiencing right now, at least. Something that those that we respect uh, embody, but yet if we were to try to put our finger on it, we wouldn't really be able to definitively say. So there's another paradox there. As you know, people on a path, travelers on a path, the goal is pretty slippery to define. And yet at the beginning of each practice, we're asked to, do this thing called bodhicitta, which is a way of relating to that goal and a way of orienting to it. And the best we can do, as we just did, is we start where we are, not only with our current level of wisdom and so forth, but with the best of our capacity of being present to ourselves. This what we started with initially, just really feeling what we feel and having the courage to feel what we feel, being honest about it, and then moving from that to developing the capacity to feel for others, uh, moving from that into something, again, it's like it's getting bigger and bigger. And we're moving from that into something that's not only altruistic, but impartial, universal altruism, universal declaration of human rights. It's big. It's pretty radical. It's under threat. It's something that is demonstrably, more inclusive, larger, bigger, better than whatever we're building upon of our capacity to care. So then it seems like we need to go further. We need to unfold it more of that, bigger, better, uh, that kind of thing. So we do that, right? And at a certain point, though, we start to lose the thread almost. There's something in us that is suspicious. Is it really just more of that? Are we just on this kind of asymptote to infinity? And at a certain point, something different will happen, right? We come up against the limitations of language, of reference, of agency, like doing this thing called striving for enlightenment, which again is based on that paradox. It's undefinable. And there's plenty of other paradoxes in there as well. Like the famous one from Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, that the ego is always kind of striving to be able to show up at its own funeral. Enlightenment being the dissolution of the ego. What better thing to be there for? So there's an inherent contradiction in being an ego and striving for this thing, this goal. So at that point, and I'm trying to sketch the boundary there, the outskirts of that, the end game of that way of approaching things. And if we can start to really sketch that and get lost in it again and again and kind of see the limitations of that way of approaching things, it'll set the stage for something that's more genuine. And as part of a path, that's such an important thing too. Striving, this perfection paramita of virya, of effort. If you don't have that, if you never have striven, then there's something missing. But at the same time, striving is not the name of the game. It's almost something that you have to develop that power in order to fully develop that power, in order to authentically let it go. And again, that's another way of talking about the boundary here, the outskirts, where striving takes you so far, and then what? Can't even say, like, okay, if it's not about doing or striving, achieving, then what? That's the space that I want to move into and explore that question at that point. Another way of looking at that, another way of approaching it, is we'll just kind of create a provisional distinction between awakening and realization. I'm just totally making this up. We have these English words. If we were to translate them, they have, in Tibetan at least, maybe I can do a little bit of Sanskrit, but in Tibetan at least, awakening is Jangchup, which is translation of Bodhi, or Bodhi, or Buddha, comes from the same root, the awakened one. That Bud is to awaken. And when that has been translated into Tibetan, it means like completely purified and perfected. So that's the kind of definition of awakening. And it's synonymous with Buddhahood. It's the culmination of the path. So awakening in that sense. Realization, that's called Tokpa. And it's distinguished from what's called experience, jnana. So if we go that route, realization means the distinction there between realization and experience is one in which you develop experiences that in some way, again, bring you closer, experiences of spaciousness, like what we did just now, moving experiences of being without reference, experiences of being free of concept, qualities, similar qualities, going beyond concept, reference, and conceptual mind dying down, and having that kind of expansive peace that is free of the kind of conceptual busyness. Other experiences are those of clarity, where there is fundamentally it's a quality of knowing. You know very clearly. That can mean clarity of knowing another's mind, knowing something that is happening remotely, not within your immediate senses. but it can also be experiences of knowing your own, situation, seeing something very clearly in the environment, having visionary experiences with clarity, of luminosity, um, sound, clear, all of these more like divine ways of perceiving, pristine, clear, vivid sensing. These are all experiences. And the third category of experiences have to do with well-being, of blissful sensations, of pliancy in the body, of flexibility, um, of that aspect of well-being that you feel you're more like this is the true way of being. Like I'm coming back to this is how it should feel. Like this feels like home. But that kind of experience. If you feel affirmed, you feel connected. So these are all the three main categories: non-conceptuality, clarity, and sensation or bliss. These are the main kind of rubrics of experience. And that is contrasted with realization. And it's not a total contrast, like these experiences are indicative of, and it's kind of like the scent of the trace uh, of realization, but they aren't realization in and of themselves, and so that needs to be distinguished. So that's another way of looking at this. So if we talk about awakening, realization, and experience, and then just kind of in like common parlance, conventionally, there's a it's pretty established way of talking about spiritual experience as having had experiences of awakening. And I don't want to kind of muddy the waters here, like get cross the wires, but I do want to point out that a lot of times people will say, I have had an awakening, or an experience of awakening. And that's significant because it indicates that someone has crossed a threshold where before that point, they were seeing and being and knowing one way. After that point, things had radically shifted, total paradigm shift. There is a kind of a glimpse of something that is more true, more genuine, and so forth. And it gets super sticky and weird. And if you go down the rabbit holes of it's just like trip reports, basically, a lot of times, people's awakening experiences. But I want to call that out because it's an important, and this is where this whole topic came from. Someone asked a question a while ago. What's the difference between awakening and realization? So we make that distinction. Realization, then, we're going to make it distinct from awakening experiences. Realization is the full fruition of of that sense that you've caught during your awakening. It's the full stabilization of that. Ram Dass would call it the fully cooked goose. You talk about the you know yogis or spiritual teachers who have had genuine experiences, but distinguishing that from the fully cooked goose who there's nothing left to experience or realize, right? So hopefully I'm not losing you here in these distinctions. But point is, it's messy, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. So as a starting point, distinguishing three types of meditative experience, or we could also say awakening type experiences, from realization. And another way, and this is, many of you are in the course on initiation, and so another way of contextualizing this is in the context of the four empowerments, where in the context of the third empowerment, we are either serendipitously or catastrophically or just as a function of being human, or as a deliberate relationship with initiation and the path of initiation, have experiences uh, of union, of dissolution, of such tremendous heartbreak and or joy, um, non-conceptuality, clarity, bliss, that are taken to that that boundary that I talked about before, the fullest extent. It's like it's so non-conceptual that you can't ever imagine anything being more peaceful, more pristine, more even, more vast. And you say, well, if this isn't it, I don't know what. Right? Or you have experiences of clarity. And it's like so tremendous. You are seeing the burning bush. It's not a bush, it's like, you know, it's everything on fire. But the fire is so total that you are the fire, you're in the fire, and the fire is forever and will be forever and never was, right? It's like the clarity of that. Or it's called the realm of infinite consciousness. This is one of the God realms. You see and know everything so clearly. And everything is you. You are coextensive with the whole universe. There's nothing beyond it. By definition, it's the big one. Can't get any bigger. Uh, make me one with everything, kind of thing. And bliss. And this, in the context of the third empowerment, it's explicitly the path of bliss that progresses through what's called 4 stages of joy. The joy of just being so broken open that you are laughing and crying at the same time. That place of the heart, you might say, that is has this feeling of totality and balancing opposites, grief and joy, love and loss, laughing, crying, that space. That's just the beginning, right? And then, and I can't, very soon I'll go beyond my pay grade, but it matures into something that is called supreme joy. Again, sounds bigger, sounds better. Um, and then that's only the second one, and then that progresses into what's called God draw, which means joyless, separate from joy, uh, which makes me feel very much like the Saint John of the Cross, Dark Night of the Soul, that kind of being so, in the way that it's defined in that tradition, is that you are so close to the divine that you can't find it, him, her, it anywhere, because it's so close. And so you feel bereft. You feel totally abandoned. You feel, you feel so joyful that there's no joy. And then that's the third, and then that progresses to the fourth, which is called Sahajananda, or connate joy, connate bliss. And so that at that point, whether we're and I think all of this is also very pertinent to the realm of psychedelic experiences. Of there's a project to map experiences that are psychedelic and related to psychedelic experiences, and to create typologies. And it's an interesting thing. But these experiences of timelessness, going beyond space, having experiences of unity, experiences of it's called noetic quality, um, like gnosis, like you feel like, oh, I get it, like I really understand. You get the download. Everybody's talking about the downloads, right? So noetic quality is the way that it's talked about. This is coming from what's called the mystical experiences questionnaire. And there's a number of other ones, unity, connectedness, timelessness, things like that. So we can have these experiences, which again, in common parlance, can be talked about as awakenings. And in the context of the third empowerment, these are all called examples. It's called example wisdom. And the difference between the third and the fourth empowerment is the difference between the example and the real thing. And so what is the culmination of experience versus realization? That boundary is where we're at. That threshold between the third and fourth empowerment. And the interesting thing is, well, so just to say a little bit more about that, if your experience of timelessness is something that happened, where one day you were in time, then you have this experience, oh, there is no time. And then after that, you're back in time. Whatever that timelessness isn't timeless. You know, it has been it arose and it fell. But yet, it's a really good example. It's like you have just had an example of true timelessness that in that experience felt totally timeless. Or an experience of unity. Again, you're just your normal self. You whatever happened, happened, and then you are in total unity. Everything is you, you are everything. There's no you anymore. You could say a non-dual experience. And it's like, oh, this is the way this is right. This is the thing. I finally made it. And then you lose it. And then you're back in duality again. Whatever that experience of non-duality was, it's an example. Right? But it can be a very good example. But if the point here is that if we take the examples to be the thing, then that puts us in a position where our spiritual practice, the meaning of life, whatever we're doing, is to recapture, to regain, to get back to that thing, that example, and then to sustain it more, to make it last longer, to make that thing the whole thing. And as soon as we are in that situation where we've mistaken the example for the thing, and therefore need to make the example the thing by extending it from it, like having it be more accessible, doing this thing called integration. We're going to integrate that thing with the rest of the mess that is us in our life. As soon as we're in that mode, it's a losing game. And it's just a very, very subtle version of samsara. It's part of the problem. But if we can take those experiences as examples and not take them seriously at the same time, then we can create a very fertile way of being that opens us to what is actually timeless, what is actually non-dual, selfless, whatever you want to talk about it. And I can't say how to do that, because again, we really can only use language. Even one of my teachers, Namkhai Rinpoche, talks about it as integration. But the thing that we're integrating isn't something. It is just the ongoing recognition of what is always already there, which is not a product of a process, which is not something that is bound in time or can never arise or pass. And so making that bridge is really important. That's the key here. It's the main point. And then one final thing before I open it up to say is that it's like the supreme irony of all of this that, or maybe it's the authentication of true realization, that that's not a thing either. It's not like you arrive at this place that you're fully integrated and now you are stably abiding in realization. You are the fully cooked goose, so to speak. It's that when you are fully cooked, your experience is one in which you are constantly being plunged into loss, heartbreak, ecstasy, agony, the tremendous vicissitudes of being human. You become more human, which means you become more in the thick of it, so to speak. You whatever it is that makes us human, that is so genuine about love and loss, about birth and death, all these the rubrics of samsara, now we are containing them. And so you're kind of right back where you started in a sense. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have, huge vicissitudes, be swinging from agony to ecstasy and heartbreak to falling in love. And but sometimes you you will, when you really want to open to the fullness of being human in that way. It's a roller coaster. It's a very wild ride, but it's not one in which my teacher would call it being pulled by the nose rope. So in Tibet, you have a ring through the nose of a yak, and then you lead the yak around. So he always say, don't give your nose rope away, to others or whatever it might be. Don't get pulled around by that. Um, these swings of being human happen generally because we've given that away and we don't have power. But the distinction here is that it's coming from a place of freedom, and we're actually welcoming and embracing that aspect of humanity, because it is what not only is our condition, we have this body, we're in this world, so forth, and we have to honor that, but we're choosing to honor it creatively, and it's what allows us to, tying this back to the beginning, it is the expression of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta expresses itself through human drama and the way that we can help to heal and to create and to do all of these things that are, the best parts of being human. So anyway, that's enough talking. Curious to hear how any of that lands, and if there's anything that you want to explore more, or I know a lot of you have been sharing with me things that are related to that. Yeah, so cover a lot of ground. Let's open it up. Anybody have anything? How does that sit with you? You want to check out of the Human Project or the Enlightenment Project? Anyway, Dorothy, yeah, you're muted, Dorothy.
I'm always vacillating between the spiritual and, but guys, we live here on the earth. Isn't there some reason why we would be here? If we see wrong, do we try to make it right, or are we just here to be ecstatic without any response to what's going on around us? So then you get all into, well, I don't want to get political, or separation of church and state, whatever that means, and not very holistic. Um, I don't know if you can just talk to that conundrum. I mean, I'm definitely in the samsara, but not
Yeah,
fully.
no, that's it. I mean, it is, I think the first thing is to acknowledge that uh, there's going to be inherent contradictions. If you want to look at it through the rational mind, it's going to be contradictory. You know, that we are unbounded um, divinity in a very restrictive, conditioned situation, and that and this is more from talking from a Western point. I guess it's also Buddhist, that the human realm, is a place where you can experience both. You can experience the boundlessness, and you can experience the limitations of conditioning, and the fact of that full spectrum being available is what makes one human, and that's good news, right? So generally, it's not good news because we're lacking in wisdom, which means we're lacking in either a sense of humor, or we're lacking in the underlying confidence of our true nature that is not afraid of death, not uh, hesitating or resisting full immersion in relationality, in the web of relationships, not withholding ourselves. We don't have that fear anymore. And so if there is that big view, then the conditions of, okay, let's do this thing called creating a government. Let's be a founding father, a founding mother of a new something or other, or let's, you know, have a revolution. Let's try to change things in a way that doesn't simply reinscribe the old patterns. Like then you can fold back on the conditions with a big view and a, an attention to detail. Whereas if you don't have the big view, the attention to detail just gets stressful and exhausting, and the inherent contradictions in the middle of all of it, you kind of have to avoid them or like push them behind or deny them, and found a utopian movement or something. There's all sorts of weird things that happen when you don't acknowledge the inherent contradictions within relative existence. And there's all sorts of very difficult things that happen when you try to engage with conditions without a big view. Um, and and as you said, also, if you only remain in the big view and you don't get into that creative work, you're missing the point. So this is the landscape that we're in. Um, and it does relate very much with what we were talking about. Yeah, is that helpful? Anything more?
No, that was helpful. I'm still in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, and we're always in the middle of it, right? And that's the point. Because if you're not in the middle of it, then you've taken an exit in one of those ways. Um,
Yeah, it's what I always get back to. It's the middle way, which is,
sure.
with wisdom, and that's the trick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another way of talking about it in terms of the two truths. And in this case, that's much more, that's the best way of approaching that question, is through the two truths and the middle way. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for that. Lauren, how about you?
Thank you, Lama. This was really wonderful. I've been experiencing in these meditations of expanding out awareness out through the floor or out into community. Feelings that my awareness is meshing in with others' awareness, which might be kind of a non-dual experience, but this is just very recent for me. And in that, I seem to be wanting to, when you said the attachment of like the feeling, wanting to go back to it, um, and being aware of that is something I'm now more aware of through things like what you're telling. But one of the things that's been on my mind is Tonglen has been coming into this meditation for me, where I can't just want to be fully enlightened and awake and aware, but I need to give and receive. So it's almost like in the practice of open awareness, I am just doing Tonglen kind of um, spur of the moment. So if I'm connecting into someone else's awareness field and I am taking their goodness, I need to give back to them so that I can stay in connection to them and not break that connection. So I just wanted to share that as it comes up in practice.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I would just experiment with doing Tonglen with an ever increasingly light touch, where we can do Tonglen and it could be really substantial, bringing in the suffering, offering our goodness. But playing with that, and sometimes that's appropriate. That's what we need. But especially like with what you're saying, when you're practicing more in an open awareness style, and Tonglen just kind of comes in naturally, that's really good. Experiment with making that more and more subtle, so that it's maybe just an out breath of offering, and that's it for another 5 minutes.
Okay.
And maybe you breathe in, and it's so subtle. There's just a kind of very subtle being touched with compassion, like being willing to be vulnerable and receive. And you feel that, and then that's it. Or there's a give and a take. Or the give and the take becomes, it's just happening way in the background. And it's just a kind of ornament of the space. So experiment with that, how forward you bring it, how substantial it is. And the point here is to blend it with nature of mind, so that it can be an expression of nature of mind rather than something that is distinct from it. Yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so try that. Good. Anybody else? Yes,
Yeah, thank you for that. That was so beautiful. The kind of union, personal and ultimate, and then the dissolution. I was having a very similar kind of feelings come up where, with the dissolution, a kind of visual alchemy will happen. And it's so nice and spacious and beautiful. And I kind of want to stay there or observe it. And then I remember, or lots of the different practices, like even tumo or warmth, can come out in different ways. The bodhicitta of something, or a shimmer, or you remember kind of bodhicitta, and then it does bring it back to expressing in like flesh and bone. And even the motion, it like reminds me of like you were saying, the Vajra dance or the movement, and then wanting to kind of serve that, to kind of give that in the flesh and bone, in the personal it's really cool that it kind of circles back in those ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you look at it that way because some of the times, sometimes I feel like it's actually such a big bum deal. It's like, oh gosh, like this body, like people, politics. But right, yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. Consciousness. If any of you read Donzo Kensei's Losar message, talks about how we have to have the courage to put up with the how did he put it? It's like the consequences of being conscious because it's not easy. It's like, oh gosh, me and everything else. And now, it takes courage. Um, but ideally, right, we can see embodiment as a gift, as something that we can inhabit creatively and with humor and with elegance and without losing the outrageousness. Um, yeah, that's it. Good. Yeah, I have to go at 55, but if anybody has any, do one more maybe. Anybody has anything?
Before you
Nancy,
go, Nancy,
let's do
yeah,
Nancy. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Carmen, so much for sharing today. I'm putting in the chat the address for people if they want to make a contribution financially, just to move forward, and one way of showing appreciation along with our practice. So again, thank you. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thanks, Anya.
So thank you, Karma, for talking about this today. A lot of what you spoke of really hit home, especially in regards to one of the most recent experiences that I feel like I'm still kind of riding the aftershocks of. So I don't know how much I really want to talk about this experience itself, but talking about bravery, the description of the fully cooked goose after that experience it kind of made me afraid because if what I experience is kind of a perpetual
Forever. Yeah.
that sounds very exhausting.
Yeah, exactly. So really being able to situate these experiences, temporary experiences, not only having a sense of humor about them, which means they're not the thing and we treat it lightly, also having a sense of grace, that it is a blessing, and that we don't have to take ourselves seriously because we are blessed, or we don't have to therefore create a theological orientation, that this blessing is something coming from some divine entity necessarily, but that it's all okay, it's all good, and it's part of a flow. And on the flip side of that, initiatory experiences are oftentimes, blessings, put it that way, are oftentimes not pleasant, but at the same time, they're not permanent either. And this is the flip side of that whole situation. Like, not only do we not need to make these temporary things permanent, but sometimes it's good that these temporary things are not permanent. And so that's just the flip side. That's part of the program. Um, and and even if it was a good thing, like, do you want to be in, those guys who are like always in a state of bliss? Like, I don't want to be there either. But yeah, so thanks for bringing that out. That's an important distinction. Yeah. Good. So thanks everybody for showing up. I'm glad we haven't been able to meet for a while, just on this topic. So hopefully this can fill in some gaps. And I also wanted to, talk with people about their specific experience or relate it to what we've been teaching. So let's dedicate and close here. I'll share the screen. Through this merit may I gain omniscience and defeat my faults, the enemy. And may I liberate all beings from this rough and stormy sea, samsara's ocean with its waves of birth, old age, death, and disease. They know things in their true existence, and dues on Go and Manjushri. To train myself in their example, I dedicate all virtue fully. May every being through this practice completely gather merit and wisdom, attaining the two sacred bodies that merit and wisdom emanate. For the blessing of the Buddhakayas, the blessing of changeless Dharmata, the blessing of the steadfast Sangha, and its dedication be fulfilled. Thanks, everybody. See you around.